All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the first meeting of our committee this week on the 27th of January. Appreciate all of you being here. There seems to be a lot of interest in at least one of these bills. First one we'll take up is 113, and then we'll take up 112. I'm just going to make a note for the folks that are here for 112. I have probably 25 people that have signed up remotely to testify. So use your time wisely, because we will finish this bill today, is my intention. So the sponsor will get to present it, and then we'll go to that bill. All the committee members are here. For those in the public that can't see, Senator Hutchings is introducing this bill. She's in the presentation spot. And so anything from the committee before we get started? Clayton, anything we need to attend to? All members present. Senator Hutchings, would you please present Senate File 113 for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get started, I've got to say that other than passing the bill on homicide amendments, this is probably one of the most important bills that I've been involved in. It's a bill that's going to be a win-win for everybody, the braiders, the cosmetology licensing, and it's going to be a job creator for our state. With that said, Mr. Chair, I'll go through the bill quickly and make some additional comments if needed. On page 1, Braider Opportunity Act, this is an act relating to professions and occupations. It's pretty much just exempting braiding from a cosmetology license. On page 2, we have a definition of what braiding is and what the practice of natural hair braiding, what it means. And then on page 3, we have the exemption that this act shall not apply to any person solely engaged, and that is the operative word, solely engaged in the practice of natural braiding of hair. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I look at this also as a career and education opportunity, something Wyoming is really huge in promoting. When I get my hair braided, my textured hair, when my beautician is not available, I have to travel all the way down to Colorado to get it done. And with that, Mr. Chairman, a lot of expense, a lot of spending money in Colorado for gas, going to stores, going to places to eat, when this money could stay in Colorado. And the cost of to a braider to attend a cosmetology school in Wyoming can be over $12,000, and they're not even taught how to braid. No licensing school at this time does teach braiding. That would be akin to paying for an auto mechanic license, going to class, and never touching a car. Without that, Mr. Chairman, I sit for questions. I have Ms. Lolly Gunn and Mr. Stovall here, beauticians here in Cheyenne that are here to help testify on behalf of this bill. So if you have any questions, you can direct them to me or to them.
Thank you very much, Senator Hutchings. Any questions for Senator Hutchings on the bill? Questions on the run through the bill? All right.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, I did have a couple handouts. These just kind of explaining what the hair braiding is, how safe it is. And this chart here gives you a list of 35 states that have already passed this exemption. So.
Very good. I think all of the members have those, so I
Thank you.
appreciate that. So we'll start with you, Ms. Gunn. Did I get that correct? If you'll just introduce yourself for the record and then go ahead and provide your testimony. Thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you. Chairman Barlow. My name is Leonia Gunn. I own Ethnic Hair Care.
And you're welcome to provide testimony, but I'll ask you to pull that microphone just a little down. Yep, there you go. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So this bill is particularly important to us because there are so many talented braiders out there that don't have the luxury of being able to go to school and not be taught something that's going to sharpen their craft for their career. If this bill gets passed, it's pretty much going to allow salon owners at their leisure to hire braiders with the pretty much like a like internship or mentorship, allow them to work under our business. with our guidance, of course, within the cosmetology rules and regulations, and making sure that the client itself, or himself, him or her, are protected and are being provided for. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Perfect, thank you. Any
Yeah.
questions for Ms. Gunn? Questions? Thank you very much. Mr. Stovall, I believe, please introduce yourself.
Yes, Andrew Stovall, and I am a barber there at Ethnic Hair Care.
So go ahead and provide any comments you'd like to about your interest in the bill, or support for it, I assume, but go ahead.
Yes, I do support the bill, of course. As I've worked with Lolly for over 9 to 10 years, and braiding is essential to what we do in our shop, and also like in our lifestyle as we grow up and in our families and everything like that. So I think it's a good deal for people who don't really have the money to go to school, but they still want to earn money for their family and themselves as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Questions from the community for Mr. Stovall?
Mr. Chair, just
Do you want to
quickly,
go finish it out, and then we'll see if there's any public comment?
that's awesome. I just think it's fair to bring up some of the opposition I did hear. One of them was, well, if we had to go to school for cosmetology, for a cosmetology license, so should the braider. Again, no school teaches braiding. Number two, fear of alopecia. And I would guarantee you that the men in our committee that do not have hair can say that it wasn't because their hair was braided that they're losing their hair. And if Mrs. Gunn could touch on that just a little bit for you, I think it'll be good because we may hear it in the committee of the whole.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Gunn, if you'd like to
Absolutely.
address that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have heard on several occasions people address the fact that they believe that tension alopecia is definitely caused by braids. In just my history of doing hair, I have over 23 years of doing hair. Alopecia is not only just a tension thing, but it comes from a lot of different things. It could be genetic, it could be, if you are malnutrition, there's a number of things that contest to that as well. So I don't think, just like she gave an example, that tension alopecia only comes from braids. It comes from a magnitude of things as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Questions from the committee? So I'm going to ask, I guess I'm going to ask you just to, well, no, we'll do it when we work the bill. We're fine. Thank you very much. So you guys can find a seat in the back. Who else would like to testify to this bill? Anyone else like to testify to this bill? Please come forward. And there's no one online for this one, is there, Clayton? Oh, there is, sorry, I missed that on that. So whoever's online, put your hand up so we can get you in next. Go ahead, please. It's good to see you.
Mr. Committeeman, members of the committee.
Closer to you, please. Thank
Not
you.
better, perfect. My name's Lexi Darty, I'm representing Americans for Prosperity. And we are here to support this bill. This bill is an important step towards reducing unnecessary licensing requirements for citizens in Wyoming. The current licensing requirements under the cosmetology framework impose excessive barriers for the individuals who simply want to perform the basic task of hair braiding. This bill rightly eliminates this requirement, making it easier for individuals to enter the workforce without unnecessary hurdles. While this bill is a great start, I think more should be done even to examine and reduce other overly burdensome requirements within the cosmetology license. Streamlining these regulations will empower more individuals to pursue work in this field while reducing barriers of employment. We already struggle to keep our kids in Wyoming, but I think by creating a business-friendly environment and allowing people to self-actualize in it may help reduce this problem. So I urge the committee to support this bill, and I stand in for a question.
Thank you very much. Questions? Ms. Doherty? All right, thank you.
Thank
Anyone else in the room want to testify? Please come forward. If there's anybody else, there's 3 chairs up here, so don't be shy. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Go ahead and introduce yourself and provide your testimony.
My name's Darian. I own a food truck and a restaurant here at the mall. You guys here.
I'm just here to testify on my behalf. I have long hair. I love to get braids, but I have to go to college a lot to get it done. Mr. Stovall here, he cuts my hair, so it'd be nice if he can cut my hair and then get it braided at the same place. But you know, I have to go through the hassle of going to Colorado just to get my hair done. It's a hassle, you know, and I try to maintain it about every 2 weeks. I would do it a little bit better if I had, you know, the source here. But yeah, I just wanted to give my testimony.
Thank you very much. What's your food truck name?
Nay and J's.
A&J's, all right.
So we'll
thank
be
you.
at the Frontier Mall too in March.
Just trying to keep the business local. All right. Anybody else in the room? Anybody else in the room? I'm making sure. All right. Anybody, go ahead and allow the one online, please. If you're online, thank you. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Chair Barlow, can you all hear me all right?
Yes, please proceed. Introduce yourself and give your testimony.
My name is Sophie Mars, and I'm with the Institute for Justice. We are a nonprofit public interest law firm that works to protect civil liberties, including economic liberty, the right to pursue the occupation of one's choosing. And we are in support of Senate File 113 because the bill acknowledges that natural hair braiding is safe for practitioners and consumers, and it reduces regulatory burdens, which would be boons for entrepreneurial growth across Wyoming. I believe you all have a spreadsheet which talks about the current dynamics in the United States for braiding. And it's very important to emphasize that Wyoming is one of only 3 states in the United States that still require braiders to obtain a full cosmetology or hairstyling license. By contrast, 35 states fully exempt hair braiders from licensure, and the remaining 13 states require a specialty license for hair braiders. But it's important to note that even specialty licenses are being lifted right now. And those specialty licenses were created because states recognized that full cosmetology licenses, like the one that Wyoming has right now, was unnecessary and overly burdensome. So it's very telling that states are choosing to repeal even specialty licenses. Pennsylvania and Ohio did so in the last few months, and a task force in Illinois recently recommended the same position. What these states are recognizing is that braiding is safe. It's a manual art form that doesn't require the use of chemicals, dyes, or straighteners. The task force that I referred to in Illinois actually said, and I quote, "The requirement for hair braiders to obtain a license is unnecessary as there is no public safety concern when individuals braid hair. And requiring a license for hair braiders does not enhance public safety, but it disproportionately impacts individuals from minority communities." One can liken being a hair braider to being a chef in the sense that many chefs are self-taught, they grew up cooking, but they don't need to go to culinary school or be licensed by the state in order to provide food to customers. And they have a professional incentive to maintain clean and safe workspaces to keep their customers happy. And braiding is no different. But it is very compelling that in Wyoming, braiders are currently required to train for double the amount of time as pharmacy technicians and over 4 times the amount of time as emergency medical technicians. So this braiding exemption, Senate File 113, would address that disparity as the current 1,000-hour education requirement for braiders is disproportionately burdensome compared to the requirements for occupations more related to health and safety. So as there is no public safety advantage for increased barriers to entry, it's important to consider why those barriers exist at all. And I commend the legislature for considering that question today. We urge you to pass Senate File 113, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mars. Any questions? Any questions? Seeing none. Anyone else online? One more online. Please come on. Anybody else in the room? If you want to testify, get to the microphones. All right, go ahead, sir.
Thank
Introduce
you, Chair
yourself.
Barlow. My name is Connor Norris. I'm the Director of Labor Policy at the NEE Regulatory Research Center at West Virginia University. So I largely agree with the previous speakers, but I'd like to quickly add one important point for your consideration. There is some direct research on the effects of this reform. This research finds evidence that Virginia's reform back in 2012 led to an increase in new hair braiders, especially more opportunities for smaller owner-operated beauty salons. So removing unnecessary barriers to entry worked to help increase employment and encourage entrepreneurship, and this was all done without sacrificing consumer safety. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Connor, any questions for Connor? Seeing none. Any other public testimony? Public testimony going once, twice. Public testimony is closed. Committee, what's your pleasure? Thank you. Senator Scott, move the bill. Discussion on the bill.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott, I'm going to turn your microphone on, Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I would add to the comments we've received that if anybody wants to understand further why bills like this are a good idea, read the chapter on licensure in Milton Friedman's classic book, Capitalism and Freedom. It's very much on point.
Very good, Senator Scott, thank you.
Question.
Is there, let's just, hold on a second. Is there any discussion on the bill? Any amendments to the bill? I have one inquiry for you, Senator Hutchins. And this is about specificity. So when we go to page 2, line 5, there's a definition of braiding device, and then there are numerous devices. And I just want to be sure for the practitioners of this that that's inclusive of everything. And what I mean is sometimes we say things like including but not limited to clip, comb, crochet, hook, curler, hairpin, and I just throw that out there. And we don't have to solve it now, but I just want you to think about that as when we go to the floor. There may be something to be, is that everything? I know it's everything that maybe they use. Is that everything that's used in the profession? Thank you. Go ahead, Senator Hutchins.
Chairman Barlow, I really appreciate that catch. I can proudly say we were, as I was told, the first group that has ever come before the cosmetology board to ask them to get involved in grooming this bill. And I will get with them again after this, if the bill moves forward, and ask them if that would be a great amendment to add, not limited to. They did look through it, and we did make some changes before the bill got to you, so I'm all for it.
All right, thank you. And I just want to be clear, and the reason being is if a braider used something besides these things, then there could be the implication that, then that doesn't fall under the exemption. That's only, and I'm not saying that would happen, I just want to be complete for you. Any further discussion on the bill? Further discussion on the bill? Seeing none? Clayton, would you call the roll on Senate File 113?
This is a roll call vote for Senate File 13. Senator Crum.
Aye.
Senator Hutchings. Aye. Senator Scott.
Aye.
Senator Steinmetz. Aye. Chairman Barlow.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 5 ayes.
Very well, thank you very much, Senator Hutchings, go ahead.
Sir, I'd like to thank the committee for our community. Really appreciate that.
Thank you to those folks that came to testify, food trucks and all. And you don't have to stick around for the next bill. If you guys got to get back to work, we understand that. Oh, there was a lot of people here for this bill. Yeah, you go. You got it. Oh, this is cool.
That was great.
No, we don't have time. All right, sorry, we thought everybody was here for the next bill. Sorry, Senator Schuler. All right, come on up, Senator Schuler, and if you have an expert witness or someone that's going to testify with you, just bring them up as well. It's going to help with the explanation of the bill. And then, as I said earlier, based on the number of people remaining in the room and the number of people on the list, 2, 4, 17, I think I count on this list, for this bill. Maybe one is going to testify on both bills. Anyway, so we have an hour left. So let's make good use of our time. And Senator Schuler, if you would walk us through Senate File 112, Anesthesiologist Assistance Licensing. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Barlow and the committee. Happy to bring this bill, Senate File 112, Anesthesiologist Assistance Licensing. This bill actually, this is maybe the second time I think the legislature has seen it or heard it. I think it actually started in the House last year, so maybe we can do a little better job and get you the information you need on this. So this was a constituent bill that, you know, I'd heard about and had people had asked me about, more than one, actually. And really what it does, you can just read the first page there of the bill. It relates to professions and occupations, where it provides for the licensing of anesthesiologist assistants, and it specifies their scope of practice. Now, in doing my research, there's not a lot of hospitals in the state of Wyoming that have right now a physician anesthesiologist, about 9 or 10. So this maybe would not only be an option for those hospitals, and again, it's an option. It's just another tool in the toolbox for those hospitals that may want to use this. Just to give you a little background on what a CAA is, for some of you that don't know. They're a non-physician health professional who provides anesthesia care under the supervision of a licensed anesthesiologist. That's the key. They have a pre-medical background, a bachelor's and a master's degree. They have clinical training in anesthesia. They pass a national board exam to become certified. You know, they study things such as physiology, pharmacology, anatomy, and biochemistry. And they work under the direction of an anesthesiologist. They do operate with an ACT team, which, so they operate anesthesia equipment and they monitor patients before, during, and after anesthesia. They have similar patient care responsibility as a nurse anesthetist. And again, their master's program is usually 24 to 28 months. They've got to be accredited by the Council on Accreditation of Allied Health Educational Programs. Their clinical training is over 2,000 hours. They typically administer about 600 different anesthetics during a variety of surgeries. They also have to pass a certification exam by the NCCAA. And right now they're practicing in about 22 states. Again, there's about 15 different programs out there that are accredited by CAAHEP. And again, they have to be associated with the anesthesiology department of a medical school, and they must have a board-certified physician anesthesiologist as the medical director. So again, just to reiterate, once they're fully trained, certified anesthesiologist assistants work exclusively under the medical direction of the physician anesthesiologist, and they're an integral part of that physician-led anesthesia care team model. I did provide, before I go over maybe I'll go over the bill first real quick. The first few pages, it's a long bill, but the first few pages are just on the definitions. They talk about the alternate anesthesiologist, what a full-bore anesthesiologist is, so on and so forth. You probably read through those already. Talks a little bit about how they're certified, which I just mentioned. It talks a little bit about what they can do already in these states that have them. And then the last part of the bill, honestly, just talks a little bit about their medical licenses. They are certified by the medical board, which is a little different than a nurse anesthetist who's certified by the nursing board. It talks a little bit about their qualifications starting on page 14, which I just talked about that a little bit. Goes over temporary licenses and how their licenses are reviewed. They do have to provide continuing education hours, which I'll go over that in just a minute. So if you have any questions, specific questions on the bill, it's mainly, again, very similar to what you might see with another scope of practice, where it just talks about if they lose their license, here's how it could be reinstated, and so on and so forth. So with that, I did want to provide a statement here, because in the past, what I heard was that a lot of the nurse anesthetists came out against this bill. And so I brought a statement that was put out by the American Society of Anesthesiologists that compared the CAAs and the Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetists, just to kind of give you an idea of what they do and how they're very similar in a lot of ways. And if you look over on page 4 of that handout, just to give you an idea, number of months in a program, CRNAs are about.
Senator Schuler, would you
Yes.
just show us we got a pile of stuff
Oh,
up
do you?
here.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know
a
which one is yours. So-
Statement on comparing certified anesthesiologist assistant and
Okay,
certified
thank you,
registered nurse.
thank you.
anesthetist-
I
Okay,
just
sorry
wanted
about
to
that.
make sure I was in the right spot.
So on page 4 of that handout, just talks about 24 to 36 months, your CRNAs have to have that many months in the program. Your CAAs, it's 24 to 28 months. The number of didactic hours, 34 to 80 hours for the CRNA. It's 56 to 132 for the CAA. The minimum number of anesthesia cases are very similar, about 550 for the CRNAs, about 600 for your CAAs. The minimum number of clinical hours, your CAAs actually have more generally. The minimum number for CRNAs is 1,700. The minimum number for the certified assistants is 2,000. Minimum number of neuraxial anesthetics on live patients, I thought this was really important. There's only 10 that are required by the CRNA, there's 40 that are required by your CAAs. The number of peripheral nerve blocks on live patients, no minimum for your CRNAs, there's 40 for your CAAs. And then on the very top of the next page, central venous line insertion on live patients, no minimum for your CRNAs, about 5 for your CAAs. So again, their schooling is maybe a little bit different. If you look over on page 6, I think this is the key about the third paragraph. They did a study published in Anesthesiology, October 2018, which basically said the specific composition of the anesthesia care team, whether made up of physician anesthesiologists, an AA, or a physician's anesthesiologist and a CRNA, was not associated with any significant differences in mortality, the length of stay, or inpatient spending. And I think that's probably the number one most important thing in this bill. And there's a little bit on the certification, if you want to take a look at that on page 7. It just talks about the Board of Nursing requires the CRNAs first year, they got to have 40 CEUs. The CAAs through the Board of Medicine have to have 40 credits. So they're very similar there. And then on the last page, the last paragraph under conclusion, the committee basically found no evidence that any of these differences result in disparity in knowledge base, technical skills, or quality of care when supervised by a physician anesthesiologist. In my research, bottom line is we do have a shortage of anesthesiologists. That is true. And so the anesthesiologist, if a hospital chooses to use CAAs, the anesthesiologist has to be there on site, and they could actually supervise 2 of them. They could be in 2 different rooms doing surgeries. The anesthesiologist has to be right there. So I know that's been a question I think that's been brought up in the past. So my bottom line is I think this will help us with shortages. It'll help us with people who maybe want to come back to the state of Wyoming. I know there's one possibly right here next to me that is in that same boat. And again, this is not something hospitals have to do. They can hire an anesthesiologist, they can hire a CRNA, or they can hire some CAAs to work under an anesthesiologist. It's strictly an option, and it's something I think if you look at all of the background and the training that is involved, these people are safe. And I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Senator Schuler. Any questions for Chairman Schuler? Questions? Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, page 13, line 7, no person shall practice as an anesthesiology assistant, etc. I can understand the rest of that paragraph where they're not going to represent themselves as being one if they aren't. Where you say no person shall practice as an anesthesiologist assistant, does that mean that nobody does the things that those people do and that's forbidden? Or is that just another protection where they're not supposed to call themselves an anesthesiology assistant unless they really are? And where I'm really going with this is, if we pass this, are we excluding anybody from doing what they're doing right now, including nurses and certified nurses that are certified as anesthesia assistants?
Go ahead, Senator Schuler.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Scott, my understanding is it's just basically a safeguard to make sure that if someone says they're a CAA, they are certified. They have been treated as such by the medical board. The second part of your question, I don't think this would exclude anyone. Hospitals are going to make decisions based on, is it cheaper to hire one anesthesiologist and maybe 2 CAAs? Maybe it's a better deal for them. Or a rural hospital maybe just wants to do the CRNA, and that's all that they really care for, because maybe they can't afford to have an anesthesiologist on site. That would be my answer to that question.
Thank you. Further questions on the bill? Further questions? Seeing none?
I'm sorry,
Senator
Mr.
Crum.
Chairman, I couldn't get to my mic fast enough.
Senator Crum.
Mr. Chairman, just 2 questions on this. Number one, the CAAs, if I got that right, are they would be supervised at all times by a licensed physician.
Mr. Chairman?
Please, go ahead.
Okay, Senator Crum, absolutely, yes. They cannot they are not allowed to work without a physician right there on site, a physician anesthesiologist.
And second
See,
question,
please.
Mr. Chairman, would be passing this bill does not forbid a hospital or a doctor's office or a surgery center from hiring a CAA if they did not want to. Would that be correct?
Senator
Mr.
Schuler.
Chairman, Senator Crum, you were exactly correct. Again, it's strictly an option. It's just another, again, tool in the toolbox. If they want to just, have a CRNA, that's what they can have. If they want to have a full-bore physician anesthesiologist, that's fine. If they don't want to hire CAAs, that's fine. There's nothing in this bill that requires any hospital or surgical center, any health area to do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions for Senator Schuler? All right, thank you. Yes, please, introduce yourself and provide your testimony. And then I'm going to, and thank you. So we're now trying to get into the proponents. I mean, obviously, the bill sponsor is a proponent. But if you've heard something before, the proponents, you've heard it before, you don't have to repeat it. Say ditto, and we'll keep going to some of the other folks that may have something new to say, and then we'll go to some other folks. So go ahead, introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Members of the committee, my name is Brandy Lunsford. I'm a certified anesthesiologist assistant, and I grew up in Evanston. I still have strong ties to the state. My parents are in Evanston. I have siblings in Evanston, Afton, Alpine, and Laramie. I'm also a wife and mother of two young children, and I'm currently working for U.S. Anesthesia Partners in Denver, Colorado, as Wyoming does not yet recognize my license or skill set. I'm here to testify in support of SF 112. Wendy did a great job, Senator Schuler, of explaining a lot about this career. I know that there are patients in 23 other jurisdictions that are already receiving the benefit of our care today. We're highly trained professionals. As she mentioned, we complete an anesthesia training program that is associated with a medical school. I attended Emory University's School of Medicine, and I graduated with a master's degree of medical science in anesthesia. All CAAs take a national certification exam, and we continue to submit continuing medical education and take recertification exams as laid out by our certifying body. My profession has been serving patients for over 50 years. We're recognized by the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid, TRICARE, and all other major commercial insurance payers. And I would also like to note that this bill is supported by the Wyoming Society of Anesthesiologists and the American Society of Anesthesiologists. There are a lot of young professionals like myself that would like the opportunity to live and work in Wyoming. As a CAA of 10 years and a Wyoming native, I am urging you to support this bill so Wyoming patients can benefit from the highly trained care that CAAs like myself provide. Supporting this bill will also help address workforce shortages and provide skilled professionals the opportunity to become a part of Wyoming's communities. I would love to be able to return home and take care of Wyoming's patients, as well as raise my children in the state that I still consider home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? And I didn't get your last name. I got Brandy, and then I got fumble fingered. So.
Lunsford.
Lunsford. Okay, thank you. All right, questions? Questions? Thank you very much. Well done. Anyone else in the room wants to testify? Let's actually go with some agency folks. Since Wendy brought her folks up, we'll now let some agency. Any other agency folks in the room want to come forward? Agencies. So we'll go through probably 3 or 4 folks in the room, and then we'll go online. And online, if Dr. Manzel is online, I'm going to ask him to go, since he is with the Society of Anesthesiologists, and then we'll skip around a little bit. So go ahead. It's great to see you.
My pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Introduce yourself. We have one new member who might not know who you are.
From Laramie, all the better, where I grew up. Kevin Bonenblust, Executive Director of the Board of Medicine. The board licenses and regulates MDs, DOs, and PAs, and if this bill becomes law, it would also regulate anesthesiology assistants. My board has no particular opinion on this. They'll go ahead and do whatever the legislature says to do on this thing. So I did want to bring a couple of points up, and then just to be here in case you have any questions of how it might be administered by the board. First off, after 18 years of this, you'd think I'd know how to do fiscal note responses, but apparently I don't, because one thing we did note in our response to LSO is that we would have about a $45,000 cost to stand this up in the first place, and then would operate at a bit of a loss, just because both PA and then AA licenses would be somewhat subsidized by physicians, but not a large loss, nothing that couldn't be absorbed, but that $45,000 we probably would need to have B11 authority or something to be able to spend that. That's mostly to upgrade our information systems, basically an entire new profession to be added. The other thing that I just noted here, and that is that this bill has been around 2 or 3 times now, and it's been taken directly from the PA Practice Act, which is part of the Medical Practice Act, Chapter 5 there. And there is one thing I'd call your attention to on page 18, and that is where it's speaking about what an anesthesiology assistant can be disciplined for. And you note starting on line 18 at the very end, it says A Romanet 1 through Romanet 10 and Romanet 12 through Romanet 35. That the omission of Romanet 11 was because back in the day when the PA license was created, PAs could not prescribe independently. So that has to do with prescribing to a known abuser of controlled substances. So my suggestion would be to make this even Steven across the board would be to strike on the end of line 18, the parens Romanet 10, and then in the next line 19, strike and parens Romanet 12. That would get rid of the omission of Romanet 11, which is an important one. And then the other is that the laws have changed since the first draft of this bill rattled around, and where you see in the middle of line 19, it says through Romanet 35, that should move to Romanet 36, XXXVI, if my Roman numerals hold up, because that requires compliance with 35-4-1001, which I believe is related to abortion, and that was put into our statute to make sure that physicians conform with that. So that would just be my suggestion, striking that language Romanet 10 through Romanet 12, and then changing the Romanet 35 to Romanet 36. With that, I will happily stand down, but I'm ready to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions for Mr. Bonamblust? Questions? Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, would these people actually be doing the same thing as the certified nurse anesthetists, or are the nurse anesthetists, do they have a broader scope of practice? Can they practice more independently than these people would?
So I don't know, that's maybe a question you want to answer on both sides of that board issue, but if you'd like to give your thoughts, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Mr.
thank you, Mr.
Bonamblust.
Chairman, Senator Scott. My own personal opinion, because we're talking about 2 different worlds here, but I believe that CRNAs, being actually advanced practice registered nurses, have a broader scope of practice than the AAs would have. But that I would have to defer for sure to my colleague at the Board of Nursing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Bonamblust? Mr. Bonamblust, while this also has a licensure for the anesthesiologist assistants, it also has some kind of acknowledgement for the supervising anesthesiologist. Do you have that with anything else? We used to have PAs that had their license under. We don't have anything else in your board now that requires oversight, do we? Currently,
Mr.
thank you.
Chairman, we do not have anything that requires it for everyone, since we had what I call the PA Emancipation Act, where they were able to go ahead and practice independently. But it is a tool that the board has in case they've got somebody that needs proctoring or something like that. The board has been known to say you need to have supervision, whether it's over the shoulder, or it's same suite, or it's same building. But that's really a remedial type thing. It's not a universal by any stretch of the imagination, but in fact, very rare.
So just to be clear, on page 14, lines 7 through 13, this says you can't be in a supervising or an alternative without a license. So this is actually a separate licensure. Is that my understanding? Is that your understanding, the reading of this?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that the anesthesiologist has to have a license, yes, and then the AA would have to have their own license. I don't think that's requiring a dual license otherwise, but in the past, when PAs were supervised, the board did have the opportunity to review and say, yes, Dr. So-and-so, you may supervise or not, just because there are certain individuals that, for whatever reason, shouldn't be allowed to supervise.
Thank you. Further questions? Further questions? Seeing none? Thank you very much, Mr. Bottomblest. All right, I've got Medical Society here, I see Hospital Association, I see nurses here, so start filling up chairs, folks. Let's go. We're gonna have one round here, and then we're gonna go online. If you're gonna testify to this bill, come on forward, please. Time is gonna get short. Mr. Bully, go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members, Eric Bully with Wyman Hospital Association, and I think this is our third time.
Pull the microphones. This room it's not always you. The acoustics in this room are not great, so help us out, please.
My wife usually tells me to shut up, so I appreciate you wanting to listen to me. We don't have a position on this bill, but I did want to address a few concerns that we have, and these are the same that we've had in the past. And I think Senator Schuler did a great job of talking about where hospitals land on this. If we are not required to use these anesthesia assistants and it's a decision of medical staff, I don't think we have too many concerns. However, I think Senator Scott brought up a good point, and we've seen this happen with scope for all types of providers. If the intent is in the future to legislate that anesthesia assistants will be able to operate independently, I think we should probably address that. We're facing a lot of bills right now where we're being legislated on what we can and can't do in our facilities. And so we have some concerns with that. I also not sure that this bill clearly defines what supervision looks like. And I heard it said that potentially an anesthesiologist could oversee two anesthesia assistants. I don't see that anywhere in here, but there would be some concerns, I would think, from a patient perspective, if we start seeing 4 anesthesia assistants at a time being overseen by one anesthesiologist. So I'm not sure we have that addressed within the bill. I would also tell you, I've queried my membership, and while we don't have a position on this, I don't think that this will be widely accepted in most of our hospitals. And again, I would hate to be forced by the legislature to have our medical staffs be forced to adhere with a state law. And so I just wanted to bring that out so in the future we're not facing that. With that, I'd stand for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Boley? Questions for Mr. Boley? Seeing none? Thank you, Mr. Boley. Go ahead, please.
Can I go first?
No, we're going left. We're going from Mr. Boley this way. We're gonna go.
All right,
Somebody
sounds
else wants to testify, come up and get in that chair.
All right.
Go ahead.
My name is Tracy Richard.
Closer to the mic.
Closer.
Just pull it right so you
Better?
can, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Tracy Richard. I am a nurse anesthetist. I've been practicing for over 12 years. I've been a nurse for over 24 years, practice in Wyoming, Colorado, and Nebraska. The Wyoming Nurses Association's concerns with licensing AAs consist of the following: a high likelihood and risk of fraudulent billing of Medicare and other insurances, the higher cost of providing anesthesia services to Wyomingites, lack of any third-party national peer-reviewed studies of AAs providing safe anesthesia care, and lack of pertinent prerequisite medical training as well as their standards and clinical didactic training for AAs. I also want to address quickly, there was a statement by the AAs comparing CRNAs and AAs. I don't know where they got their numbers, but they're completely wrong. Just being honest, I really dug hard really quick to try to find out where they got those numbers. They're not accurate. I have the actual education program for standards and for the AA programs, and on page 6 and page 19, they are guidelines. They don't state specific standards of hours for them to complete for didactic or their clinical training. They have suggestions, they don't have standards that are met. CRNAs have standards. that have to be met. Let's see, TEFRA. So one of our biggest concerns, anesthesiologists have to medically direct AAs. That is not supervision, that is medical direction. They have to meet 7 TEFRA rules to be able to bill Medicare for providing anesthesia services. Those rules are the anesthesiologist must perform an anesthetic examination. They must prescribe the anesthetic plan, personally participate in the most demanding parts of the anesthesia, ensure any procedures are done and carried out by qualified anesthesia providers, monitor the course of the anesthesia administration, and physically be present for any emergencies or anything else that happens, and remain physically and present available at all times to those providers and to provide postoperative care. The anesthesiologists did their own study. It's called the Epstein study. And granted, AAs were not involved in this study. It was MDA, it was anesthesiologists directing CRNAs. But either way, it doesn't matter. It's still talking about the 7 TEFRA rules that the anesthesiologist has to meet to be able to bill Medicare. At a ratio of 1 to 2, so the anesthesiologist is overseeing, directing 2 anesthetic procedures being done. 35% of the time, the TEFRA rules were not met. If an anesthesiologist goes up to 1 to 3, to where they're looking over 3 anesthetic procedures, it's 99% of the time that the TEFRA rules are not met. So that is fraudulent billing. So that is one of our biggest concerns with AAs. The other issue is they mentioned that there was a study showing that their safety. That study was done by anesthesiologists, not a third party, not a national peer-reviewed study. There are no national peer-reviewed studies showing AA safety. There are a legislative committee in Kentucky that did a review, and they couldn't find enough to say that there was safety with AAs. And then there was an anesthesiologist at one of the schools that also did a study. And again, that provider actually went on to say that the review wasn't a carefully designed scientific study. It was not randomized, it was not published, and they would not release the data. Some of the other concerns, they said that nurse anesthetists are 24 to 36 months. We are 36 to 48 months of training. The other concern I have is that AAs will state that they are interchangeable with CRNAs. They are not. AAs are not required to have any medical background training at all before entering into their training for anesthesia, which is a 2-year training. They do have to complete some pre-med courses, but they do not have to have any experience. CRNAs have to have at least 2 years of ICU experience before they start their 3-year to 4-year training program. Just to give you an example, what AAs have no idea about before they enter into anesthesia school and have to learn, whereas CRNAs have already mastered. Starting IVs, physical assessment, vital signs monitoring, taking histories, interpreting and reading EKGs, administering and titrating medications, interpreting and heart and lung sounds, responding to emergency medicine situations, providing advanced cardiac life support and pediatric life support, monitoring and interpreting advanced cardiac information, use and management of ventilators, infusion pumps, various other types of equipment, and so much more. We are not interchangeable. We are not trained the same. There is a big difference. We can function independently, and AAs cannot. They will say that they are trained for emergency situations, and absolutely they are trained to respond to emergency situations. However, the issue still lies if the anesthesiologist cannot be in the room during those emergency situations because they're in one of the other rooms that they're monitoring and something's going on in that room, then they cannot bill for that service, that anesthetic service that is provided, because it is considered fraud. They have to meet the 7 TEFRA rules, and there are no other ways to bill for that service, so it's lost. With CRNAs, we can bill for services in 3 different ways. If it was a CRNA that was doing medical direction, working with that anesthesiologist, we could bill in a different way and recoup the cost, no problem. So those are our biggest concerns and issues. You might hear about a Wyoming study that was done by the American Association of Anesthesiologists asking about CRNAs not providing anesthetic services to patients without physician monitoring. This was a Facebook study that went to over about 400 people in Wyoming. They did not provide any background about CRNAs or what we do. And the questions that they asked stated nurses, not nurse anesthetists, would be providing Wyoming anesthesia, Wyomingites their anesthesia without anesthesiologists involved. That is very misleading. I stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Questions? Senator Hutchings, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tracy, I didn't get your last name, but I hope you don't mind if I just
Richard.
call you Tracy.
Yes.
If these AAs are practicing in another state without any complications, what makes us fear that they will come to Wyoming and act any differently?
Well, we don't know that there's complications or not. They are also not in the national provider database, so that we cannot, they cannot be tracked to find out if there are issues in their licensing or malpractice. They also do not have, like I said, there's not any national third-party testing. There's multiple studies for CRNAs and anesthesiologists that prove our safety, but it's hard to track a lot of these AAs. There are only a little over 3,000.
Thank you. Senator Crum.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, question, I believe you stated there's 35% of the 1-on-2 doctor to
Yes, sir.
CAA compliance, we're not in compliance.
Yes, sir.
What's the oversight for that as far as correcting that? And what's the penalty for being uncompliant?
Go ahead, Tracy. Go ahead.
If a medical group, it depends on how it's being billed. Is the hospital billing it, or is it the anesthesia group billing it? Whoever gets, if either of those get audited by Medicare, then they can lose their ability to get reimbursement from Medicare. They're kicked out of Medicare. So it's a big issue. Costly.
Thank you. All right, we're going to keep going because we have lots of folks. Ms. Decklever, please. And if anybody else is going to testify, come on up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the
Please.
committee, Tony Decklever with the Wyoming Nurses Association. We support our colleagues in the CRNA role. But just to answer Senator Scott's question, APRNs can work independently in the state of Wyoming. So they do not need to be overseen by any physician. They can put a flag out, they can set up their own practice, and they can work independently within a facility. So, but I just wanted to clarify that. So they do not have to be supervised.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Decklever? Questions? Questions? Seeing none? Thank you. No one else is testifying on this in the room. If you're going to testify, come to the floor. All right. Is Dr. Manzel online? If you would allow Dr. Manzel in, and then so other folks that if you haven't heard something that you want to say, put your hand up. We're going to start with Dr. Manzel, and then other folks that want to put their hands up. I see, actually, there's a association person, Perry Baldwin. Actually, that's the wife of our former chairman, Fred Baldwin. Sorry, I made a connection there. My apologies. Anyway, Dr. Manzel, are you available? Perry, you should get ready next. And then anyone else that wants to speak to us, please raise your hands. Try not to repeat anything you've heard.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Manzel.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to testify today. I am the president of the Wyoming Society of Anesthesiologists. I also sit on the national board of the American Society of Anesthesiologists, and have been living in Wyoming for the last 14 years and practicing. Senator Shielder did a wonderful job presenting the academic rigor that goes into training anesthesiologist assistants in the schools of medicine around the country. We have anesthesiologist assistants working today and every day at academic medical centers and tertiary care centers around the United States. To Ms. Richards' points earlier, the reason that anesthesiologists had to do the study on outcomes on the anesthesia care team with nurse anesthetist and anesthesiologist assistants is simple. We couldn't convince the dermatologist to do the study. And these studies frequently involve millions of patients or millions of cases and date back to as far as 2002. They are peer reviewed, and if they don't meet the standards of medical literature publication, they're not published. So I believe that the numbers actually are accurate. The Wyoming Society of Anesthesiologists supports this bill. We have several hospitals that the anesthesiologists have expressed an interest in the option to use certified anesthesiologist assistants. As a matter of fact, if we'd had access to this labor pool as far back as 10 years ago, we would have saved millions of dollars for the hospitals and for the anesthesia groups in the ability to have people who had moved here permanently and not having to use temporary labor, which is much more expensive, that we had to use both during and after COVID. Because of the substance of the other testimony before from Senator Schuler, would be willing to take questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mansell. Any questions for Dr. Mansell? Questions? Dr. Mansell, how many currently practicing anesthesiologists are there in Wyoming, if you know?
We have 59 members in the society. Roughly 5 are retired, and another 8 to 10 live out of state and don't practice here every day. So somewhere in the 45 to 52 range.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions for Dr. Mansell? Yes, Senator Crum has a question.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my question would be, Dr. Mansell talked about saving tens of millions of dollars. How do we do that, or how would that have happened?
Dr. Mansell, if you'd like to elaborate.
Mr. Chairman, so for years we've had anesthesiologist assistants from Wyoming who graduated and who wanted to move back, but they couldn't move back because we didn't have a licensure for them. And so to that end, they couldn't be here. And that has contributed to our labor shortfall. Now, I say that with trepidation because, again, I want to make sure that members of the committee understand that just because we form a licensure structure within the state of Wyoming, this does not require hospitals to use them. It does not require the medical staff, the providers on staff at the hospital, to add the CAA credential as a member of their medical staff. It merely adds options to the state when it comes to the labor pool for providing anesthesia services. And I'll tell you, with 30% of the anesthesiologists in the nation over the age of 55, we have an existing labor shortage in anesthesia provision, and it will not get better.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Dr. Mansell? Seeing none, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Clayton, who's got their hands raised? Let them in.
Next is Stuart.
Stuart Heaton. All right, Mr. Heaton, are you there? Anybody else that wants to
I
speak?
am. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me now?
He's on the job.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm in the hospital. My name's Stuart Heaton. I grew up in Utah, and I'm a practicing AA in Atlanta, Georgia now. I've worked in Wisconsin, Florida, and Georgia, and we got licensure passed in Utah, my home state, which was really important to me. I'm working on finding employment out there, but this bill is important to me. I've got family in Wyoming, and that's somewhere where I'd like to end up one day, once my kids are grown. So I just really quickly want to just say that I support the bill, and out of respect for the time, I think that there's been a lot said, and I'll waive in support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heaton. Questions for Mr. Heaton? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate you taking time.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Who else is online? Hands raised.
Next is Jared Kutzer.
All right, if you're there, Jared, Mr.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, please. Provide your testimony. Introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Provide your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee. My name is Jared Kutzer. I grew up in Casper, Wyoming, graduated from Kelly Walsh High School. I went to Montana State University of Billings and got my bachelor's in biology. I attended Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, where I received my master's of science in anesthesia. I'm currently practicing at the Christ Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I've been practicing for 17 years. I would love nothing more than to be able to provide my services to all the great people of Wyoming. That's why I strongly implore you to back this bill. With that being said, I'll keep the time short and I waive in support.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none? All right, thank you. Who else is online? So we're gonna do testimony for about, 5 more minutes, so keep them short. What was the name? Kylie Brandt. All right, Miss Brandt?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, please proceed.
Hi, my name's Kylie. I attended the University of Colorado School of Medicine to get my Master's of Science in Anesthesiology. I'm currently a practicing AA in southwestern Colorado, rural area. Grew up in southeastern Colorado, which is another rural area, so I understand how difficult hiring can be when you are in these more remote places, and the ramifications from that, like delaying care, a huge backlog of cases. So opening up the pool to hire additional people never hurts. You know, I live in a touristy mountain town, and even here we have a really hard time hiring people. And I'd love to live and work in Wyoming. I'd love to raise my kids there. You know, being from rural Colorado, things have really changed, and would love to live in the great state of Wyoming. So raising my hand in favor of passing this bill.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bryant. Any questions, Ms. Bryant? So I actually have a query, and I'm sorry I didn't ask on this on a couple others. What is the supervision ratio and the difference? You just speak for Colorado. Obviously, do you have a anesthesiologist oversight, and how many can they oversee? Thank you.
It is up to 4 to 1. Typically, it's a ratio of 1 anesthesiologist for 2 AAs or a CRNA. At my facility, and where trained AAs and CRNAs are used interchangeably. And there's no difference in what we are allowed and not allowed to do.
Thank you very much. Questions? All right. Who else do we got? Kennedy Thomas. Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
Hi, my name's Kennedy. I am from Lander. I went to Michigan State University, got my bachelor's in neuroscience, then came down to Florida to get my master's of science in anesthesia. I'm currently practicing AA in Florida, and my husband is also an AA. He actually was a nurse before he went to AA school. We were both practicing here, and we would love to be able to move home and practice. So I am in support of this bill, and I plead with you to let us come home, give us the option. And obviously, you see these bills a lot. There's always a turf war, there's always things going on, but we're just asking for a free market and the chance to be able to return home. So thank you.
Thank you. And could you tell me what the supervision ratio is in Florida?
Across the board, and yeah, I will say, I know that was a question. Across the board, we will always be 4 to 1. Or 1 anesthesiologist to 4 days. That's our national part of our licensing, not state specific.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions for Ms. Thomas? All right. Who else, Clayton? We're winding down, so if you want to say something. Paige Victor, please, if you're online, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, my name's Paige. I also am a CAA that's been practicing for going on 5 years now. I currently work at a level 1 trauma hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana. I have worked in Texas. I have worked in South Carolina as well. I just wanted to say that I am in support of this bill to allow AAs to start practicing in Wyoming. The facility that I'm at now, we also work with, or we have CRNAs and CAAs that work interchangeably as well. And we provide the same scope of practice. We do everything the same. There's, like they just said before, there's nothing that we can't do that the CRNAs can do, and vice versa. CAAs play a very safe role in providing high quality anesthesia care, and licensing CAAs in Wyoming would significantly strengthen the state's healthcare system by increasing access to skilled anesthesia providers, particularly in rural and underserved areas. We do work collaboratively with physician anesthesiologists to ensure that our patients receive exceptional care, and expanding our licensure would alleviate provider shortages while maintaining highest standards of patient safety. So I just wanted to say that I am in support of this bill, and I visit Wyoming several times annually, so I'm definitely interested in eventually being able to work in the state.
Thank you very much. Ms. Victor, questions? Senator Hutchings, question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paige, just a quick question on the MDA's, this situation that was brought up about the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982. Where does that fall into play with your practice as an anesthesiologist assistant, if any?
Yeah, if you understood the question and know what she's referring to, you're welcome to answer, Ms. Victor. I don't know.
I'm sorry, I would prefer to defer that question to somebody else.
Yeah, no, that was fair, and it's a little bit of history there, so I don't know that there's probably someone in the room that can answer it, but I didn't know if it was going to be you. So anyway, I wasn't trying to disparage the question. It was just pretty technical. All right.
Any other questions, I'm open to answering.
Nope, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Ms. Page, Victor. All right, if somebody has something new to offer online, I see lots of support on my list. So if there's something new online, please go ahead. Is Ms. Davison, let's take someone who has others. Is Ms. Davison on there? Baldwin? Yes, but she declined. She declined? Okay, all right. Okay, one last commenter. Go ahead, please. I think.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Liz Carter. I'm a practicing CAA in the state of Florida. I've been practicing for 12 years. I also work for Nova Southeastern University that actually graduates 40% of the CAAs practicing in nationally. One thing I just wanted to, I know that we have a limited amount of time. I just wanted to kind of speak on Ms. Richards or Richardson. Sorry, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I just wanted to speak on, we do have national provider identifier numbers. Every single one of us do have an MPI number as practicing CAAs. So I just wanted to point that out. And then also just speaking to, we do have students that come here to go to school in Florida that want to practice in Wyoming, Ms. Thomas being one of them, but we have several every year that want to go back to the great state of Wyoming. So I am definitely a proponent for this bill.
Thank you. Could you restate the name of the school that graduates 40%? I got the 40%, but I didn't get the name of the school.
Sure, I'm so sorry. It's Nova Southeastern University.
Novus Southeastern.
Yes, Nova Southeastern University.
Nova Southeastern.
Yes,
Okay.
sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you on faculty there?
Yes, sir. I'm the program director for the Tampa campus. The main campus is in Davie, Florida, but I'm the program director here in Tampa.
Very good. And so at 40%, how many graduates a year?
For Nova Southeastern alone, we have 5 campuses. So we have one in Denver that graduates between 30 and 35 students. We have here in Tampa between 30 and 35. So I'd say around 140, I'd say ish per year.
140 per year. All right. Thank you very much. It's very interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very, very much. Questions? Questions? Seeing none? All right. Have we exhausted them online? Oh, there's Miss. Hello, Ms. Baldwin. It's good to see you. If you'd like to provide your testimony, please go do so.
Sure. I didn't mean to decline. So anyways, I don't know how to use the computer.
Your husband was the same way. Your husband was the same way.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm aware of his computer skills. I think Tracy did a really good job. I just would like to reiterate a couple of things. All of our graduates now are doctorate graduates. They have doctorate degrees. Secondly, we are able to supply anesthesia services in a solo practice, which happens a lot throughout the state of Wyoming. I don't see how having AAs in the state of Wyoming would save money, because you have to have an anesthesiologist employed to have an AA. And I would raise caution with the fact that they can supervise up to 4 AAs in one facility. My other little tidbit is, there are licensing ways that if an AA wanted to come back to Wyoming, they could go and transfer their education and become CRNAs or something like that, if there was a way if they wanted to come back and practice in Wyoming. And I would also look at what hospitals would actually be able to use AAs, because it's not very many. So
Okay, thank
if
you
you have
very
any
much.
questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Baldwin? Well, I do miss your husband. I'll make a statement. I hope he's doing well.
He
Thank
misses you guys too.
Yeah, sure he does. All right. Anybody
But
else
he's home
online?
to snow, so I'm happy.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Anyone else in the room? Anyone else in the room? Going once? Come on up. You're going to add something to your testimony. Let's be precise, please. Tracy?
Yes, sir. So I had a surgeon who was going to speak, but he's in surgery and he's not able to, so he had written a letter. He anticipated this being an issue.
Is it I think we have a letter. Is this
Okay.
from, hold on,
Dr.
we really
Green?
do have a lot of materials on this.
Dr. Green? You have it?
Yes, we do have a letter from him. Thank
Sounds
you
good.
very much. All right, no further testimony, seeing none. All right, committee, we have a bill before us, Senate File 112. What's your pleasure? There's a motion by Senator Hutchings. All right, we'll walk through the bill. Anybody have any additions, deletions, corrections, amendments?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Scott.
the Board of Medicine amendment on page 18, which essentially strikes through on line 18, strikes through Roman numeral X, and on line 19, the words "and" XII, so it would read through WS 26402A1 through number 36, Roman numeral 36.
Yes, that's what I have. Do you have that, Clayton? Mr. Caldwell?
Mr. Chairman, just to repeat the amendment, that is on page 18, starting on line 18, correct?
Yes.
And it's just striking at the end of that line through Romanet 10 and Romanet 12. So-
And then it's inserting the XXXVI instead of the XXXV.
Yeah, I'll double
I
check
see.
with you. We'll double check, or we can get Mr. Bonham-Bless to double check on it.
Understood, thank you.
All right, any discussion on that amendment? Discussion, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Amendment is adopted. Further amendments to the bill? Further amendments to the bill?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know where it would go, but I think somewhere we ought to add the supervision ratio of, it sounds like 4-to-1 is kind of an industry standard. I don't know if it's 4-to-1 or some number below that, but
So,
I do think we should, with your questioning, add a
Mr.
supervision ratio.
Crum, if you go to the page 15, line, 17 into 18, it talks, first of all, that above that, it gives the rulemaking authority to the board and limitations, practices, and supervision. And then that last line, 17, the board shall not allow supervision to more than 4 anesthesiologists during a shift. I don't know if that's adequate for you, or if you want something more.
No, thank you for pointing that out.
And I'll just point out, and the reason I found that is because the top of that one on line 4, it actually says the board shall approve an application by a anesthesiologist to supervise. So I do think there is an active role for the board, not just their licensure, which is what I inquired about earlier. I think there is something more than just they're a physician licensure. All right, further discussion on the bill. Any further amendments on the bill? We have one. Any other further amendments? Further amendments? All right, seeing none, then discussion on the bill. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just discussion on the bill. I'm going to be a no on this bill. We saw it, I believe, last year, and I find it duplicative. I think it has the potential to possibly increase costs in healthcare, and so I will be a no. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the bill anywhere? Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and 4, I believe the words optional are primary to me. There will be an option to use this, so I think it's a good bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion. Senator Scott, your microphone's on. Do you want me to turn it off? Oh, he's going to turn it off. Anyone else? All right. So I'm also going to be a no, and mine's for different reasons. Mine's for the scope of practice. I'm a practitioner myself, and I have no interest in the state of Wyoming telling me what my scope is. So, yeah, with such precision, I'm just telling you. I mean, this says exactly what you can do, and if you're not doing that, to the braiding comment earlier, then you're outside of your scope of practice. And this is really, I don't know that there's another practice act, and I don't know them all, but that has this much specificity to what that practice is. I would suggest to those that want to be practitioners in the state, you look very carefully at this and make sure this is really the words you want in state statute, because this is really prescriptive in my view. I would say your scope of practice should be your educational experience, not what state statute lines out and what your supervising anesthesiologist tells you you're responsible for. So, that is truly, if the state of Wyoming told me what I couldn't do in black and white as a veterinarian, I'd have a problem, because that is not how I believe practice acts work. So anyway, that's my objection, is not to potential of this, it's to the specificity that's in the scope of practice. The second one I would say, and this is, I don't know where the vote will go, but I would say is, if we have equivalents in Wyoming, and I think some of the states that we heard from, CNRAs and AAs both require supervision, sounded to me like that. In Wyoming, we do not have that. I'd like the folks to think about maybe CNRAs should have the opportunity to supervise AAs, if we really believe that they are an independent licensure as they are currently in Wyoming. So anyway, further discussion on the bill, further discussion. Senator Scott, do you want to?
Mr. Chairman,
Gave up.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote aye on the bill. I think the point on maybe we should allow the nurse anesthetist to supervise these people that you just made, I think that may be valid, but we didn't see that as a proposal, and I don't know quite enough about what the nurse people can do to want to make that proposal on my own. So I think that this will add another option, enable us to get some more medical people in, and I think it's a good idea.
Fair enough. Thank you. Further comments? Further comments? Seeing none. Mr. Clayton, would you call the roll on Senate File 112?
This is a roll call vote for Senate File 112. Senator Crum.
Aye.
Senator Hutchings.
Aye.
Senator Scott.
Aye.
Senator Steinmetz.
No.
Chairman Barlow.
No.
Mr. Chairman, that is 3 aye and 2 no.
So very good. Thank you for your work. Thank you for all of you who came and provided testimony. Thank you, Senator Schuler. Thank you for all those online. You heard a couple of suggestions or a couple of thoughts that you may want to visit with your folks about, Senator Schuler, because I'm going to bring them up on the floor. I'm just at least mine. Not because I want to kill your bill, because I just think they're real, that the profession needs to think about. With that, we have Senate, so this is for the committee, just for the committee. We have Senate File 125 on Wednesday, and then I'm waiting for, 125 is Senator Steinmetz's bill, and I'm sorry, I don't recall the name of it.
Healthcare, I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, Senate File 125, it's the only bill we have up that day. And then I anticipate two dental bills, hopefully for Friday, if they get introduced. So anyway, thank you for your good work, committee. And if you have any questions or anything, let us know. Clayton, I'll check with you. Thanks to everybody for being here. Have a good day.